What's up, everyone? And thanks for joining us for this emergency episode of the Frary Smith Podcast. It's Tuesday, February 27th, and we're coming to you because there's some breaking news coming out of San Marcos, Texas. Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year, Jordan McCloud, is now a Texas State Bobcat. Caden, I need your instant reaction.
Yeah, no, it's been a crazy morning. I was thankful to break this one for On Three to start the day, and I just think it speaks to the transfer portal. It speaks to this Texas State program, and it just speaks to college football as a whole for sure. It's a huge get for GJ Kinne. Obviously, looking at a little bit of the quarterback carousel he had this offseason, some question marks as who is going to play that position for them, and he answers that resoundingly, getting the Sun Belt Player of the Year. I think it's going to be interesting moving forward to see if the Sun Belt, like some other conferences, have taken some rules as far as having players transfer from within the conference. But I think as a whole, this is just a super exciting move when you look at the West and how we kind of talked about in the mailbag as contenders being a little bit of a shortage in the competition of the West, not really comparing to the East. Well, taking the best player from the East last year and putting him in the West definitely does that. And if my excitement to watch this offense try to double down on their success last year couldn't get higher, enter Jordan McCloud to raise that excitement up a little bit more. So definitely exciting for the Sun Belt, and definitely just curious to see how this fit goes moving forward.
Well, Caden, I said in our mailbag yesterday that GJ Kinne was the head coach that I would most like to spend a day with, and consider that escalated at this point. I think my biggest takeaway, GJ Kinne is a maniacal recruiter. You think back to bringing in Jaden Delore, then Finley obviously announces that he's transferring, ends up at Western Kentucky. Delore then leaves after the fan backlash, and rightfully so. But Caden, we thought GJ Kinne would get a quarterback, but we were like, Jordan McCloud's out there. Could he be an option? Now he commits, and Kev Chardello, who's been on top of this story, is already reporting that Jordan's on campus. He's enrolled, that he's going to be involved in the entire spring ball for Texas State. This is a seismic move, in my opinion, and Jordan McCloud instantly becomes the favorite to repeat as Sun Belt Player of the Year in 2024.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Just looking at what he was able to do to kind of get better throughout the season for James Madison last year, not entering the year as the starter, coming in as a backup in the first game of the year, really taking the reins of the offense and growing throughout the season. We saw what TJ Finley was able to do in this offensive scheme, learning it in the summer heading into the year. Now Jordan has more time to do that with the spring ball involved. And I think when you look at Jordan's skill set, very interesting seeing him in the portal and not going to a Power 5 school, kind of like we anticipated. You have to think maybe some schools thought that his breakout year was scheme based, or that he was a system quarterback, or maybe he didn't have the size that they necessarily wanted. We know we heard rumors about him potentially transferring to Auburn. That didn't pan out. But I think when you look at him in this offensive scheme specifically, you have to think that he can bring kind of both of the qualities you would get last year from TJ Finley and a backup quarterback, Malik Hornsby, with what he's able to do with his arms and his legs. Jordan's a guy who ranked number 8, I believe, in the nation when it comes to passing yards, number 4 when it comes to passing touchdowns, and was able to score 8 touchdowns on the ground last year. So he's going to be a true dual threat quarterback for this scheme that we've seen be extremely effective last year. This was the top scoring offense and the top yards per game offense in the Sun Belt, one of the top 15 nationally in that regard as well. And having a point guard type quarterback who proved he can do that at a high level within your own conference is just something exciting for this team, I think, and this offense as a whole moving forward.
Well, and Caden, I think when we start this conversation, you've got to start with, it's crazy how much the narrative has changed at Texas State. This is a program that pre-GJ Kinne was 4-8 in back-to-back seasons under Jake Spavital. They hire GJ Kinne. He goes 8-5 in year one. They knock off Baylor in that first game. Then they win their first bowl game. For me, it's just insane to look at how the narrative has changed around this Texas State program in less than a year.
Yeah, GJ has the blueprint clearly. I think when we've talked in the past about our conversations with the head coaching jobs changing and evolving throughout this new unprecedented time of college football, Coach Kinne has the adaptable traits and what you need to get the job done. We have a lot of new coaches entering the conference this year, and this dude's definitely set maybe even an unrealistic standard as far as what you're able to do in your first year and your second offseason. I mean, this is a guy who clearly the offense was the bread and butter and the foundation of this thing when you look at what they were able to do on the field. But off the field, when it comes to his first transfer portal haul and what he was able to bring to this program in his first season, and his just constant ability to keep a good quarterback on him, whether they come or go, it's clearly paying off for this program. I think it's no secret that this is the most important position and the premier position, not only in all of football, but specifically in college football moving forward. And if he can continue recruiting it at this high level, at this clip, he might not even have to ever go into the high school ranks when it comes to recruiting. This dude's clearly a step ahead. I know everyone's going to be envious of him at the Sun Belt Media Days coming forward as far as what what he's been able to do with recruiting, and just an amazing turnaround of this program. And I think the new standard in this new age of college football, as far as inheriting a program and being able to make some action happen fast.
Yeah, I guess I can't imagine seeing Jordan McCloud walking up to the dais at Sunbelt Media Day. That's going to be electric. It'll be a bit crazy in a few months. But, Caden, you already briefly touched on it. Let's talk about this Texas State offense, because they averaged 36.7 points per game last year, which led the Sunbelt. But you're bringing back guys like Joey Hobart. You've got Cole Wilson still in the fold. You've got a guy like Bo Sparks, who comes from Utah Tech. Much like Joey Hobart, he was a freshman All-American last year, 7 touchdowns, over 700 yards. And then on top of it, you've got Ishmael Mahdi. You've got 3 out of your 5 offensive linemen coming back. And now you add Jordan McCloud on top of it, who was responsible for almost 4,000 yards last year, 43 touchdowns, 35 of them through the air. He brings that dual threat ability. And Caden, the addition of Jordan McCloud has secured Texas State's title as the league's best offense heading into 2024.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And this team returns Lincoln Perry as well, coming off of an injury, kind of a good compliment to Ismail Mahdi in the backfield when it comes to having that speed and versatility and also having that power. And we also mentioned it before, Jordan's going to have an own element of this offense he adds with his legs and his rushing ability. And we saw what he was able to do last year when he is well protected, when he has weapons at his disposal. We saw Elijah Surratt have an amazing year. Horton, you saw the different variety. Reggie Brown, they have plenty of different weapons at James Madison. And the same case could be made for Texas State looking into next year. You talk about Joey Hobart being one of the most underrated wide receivers in the conference, will return as one of the best wide receivers in the conference. You pair that with a great offensive line. You have Cole Wilson, who knows his offense like the back of his hand, returning for his 3rd season, kind of playing in this system. It's definitely going to be the favorite as far as the best offense goes in this conference. And if you have a good offense in today's college football, it's clear that you can get attractive guys in the transfer portal who are going to want to play for your scheme. You see it clearly with Jordan coming here, and I'm super excited and having my popcorn ready for sure to watch this unit take the field for the first time next season.
Yeah, I can say you and I will be tuned in, I'm sure, to quite a few Texas State football games at this point. And Caden, I think there's a good chance now that maybe Texas State ends up playing on a Thursday night in a primetime game at some point this season with this addition. But let's talk about the big question on everyone's mind. Does this move make Texas State the favorite in the Sun Belt West? And right now, Caden, I think the short answer is yes. Troy obviously shouldn't be counted out after winning the last 2. I think South Alabama has a nice core of offensive pieces coming back, but Arkansas State's going to bring back a ton of pieces as well. But there are some defensive question marks right now for this Texas State team, but this offense alone is enough for me to say that they are the Sun Belt West favorites and possibly the Sun Belt favorites.
Yeah, this is where I'll take my moment to pat myself on the back a little bit here. This is the team I predicted to come out of the West as the top team in the way too early rankings when it comes to the conference. And my main reason was because I knew there was a plug and play situation here at quarterback. I didn't expect them to get the Sun Belt Player of the Year as their quarterback, but I knew that this was going to be the most ready-made offense to be the most successful unit on that side of the conference. You mentioned that they have some question marks to answer on the defensive side of the ball, and I think the biggest question going forward with this side of the conference and the narrative throughout the season is going to be, can offense take you to that championship? The last 2 seasons, we've seen defense kind of win championships in this conference and win this West, with what Troy was able to do in back-to-back seasons, getting to that conference championship game and winning. But now that we're seeing potentially a culture shift in Troy, Alabama, with a new head coach, a new leader in charge, and a ton of different personnel, maybe we see points winning as far as who comes out of the West this year. You have Arkansas State returning, obviously, with an electric quarterback and Jalen Raynor. Maybe this West is decided by shootouts versus more of those rock fights we saw in the past. And I think in that scenario, you'd have to give Texas State the crown as the favorite to come out of there. And I'm very curious what the league's coaches and media members will think heading into the preseason as far as who's going to come out of the West and if Texas State has yet earned that right. Because you could still say last year was a flash in the pan, winning 8 games, but I think them being able to double down on a lot of their great players coming back and build on next season is more likely of an outcome compared to them maybe taking a step back from what we saw last year, making it to a bowl game and really making some noise in the conference.
Well, Caden, I think one last final point to kind of put a bow on this conversation. We've still got the spring transfer portal window, and you have said that when teams have established quarterback, established pieces, there are going to be players that want to go play for that program. I think GJ Kinne has a path forward here come April in that spring transfer portal window to bring in some more pieces to further solidify this roster.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The narrative in the offseason is definitely far from over. We've had a very busy offseason and we haven't even gotten to the month of March yet, but I think we can really start setting some stuff in stone and having some real strong opinions, I think, moving forward about how all of college football is going to shake out after this spring window. I think the spring window is going to be pivotal for a lot of teams. There's some teams that have some pieces they can fill in, some more roster movement we can expect when April comes around. And then after that, we can really get into the nitty-gritty and have a true big picture of what Texas State and other teams across the Sun Belt and the nation will look like heading into the 2024 season.
Well, it's a huge day to be a Texas State Bobcat fan. Jordan McCloud is going to play in San Marcos in 2024. Well, that's it for today's episode. We really appreciate you joining us today. If you're not already, make sure to pound that subscribe button. Join one of the fastest growing communities of Sun Belt football fans. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.